The U.S. is reportedly reducing some military assets in Israel, following a reported truce agreement with Iran. Questions are being raised over U.S. support for Israel as tensions persist over the possibility of a wider regional conflict. Reports suggest Israeli concerns over the U.S.-Iran agreement may not have altered Washington's approach. The U.S. military is reportedly preparing to withdraw around 20% of its refueling aircraft from Israel. The reported move follows recent diplomatic developments between Washington and Tehran. Israeli media reported that the drawdown comes after a truce agreement was reached between the U.S. and Iran. Officials have not publicly linked the redeployment to any specific military decision. Reports suggest a U.S.-Iran memorandum of understanding created a framework aimed at ending hostilities. The agreement is said to focus on reducing tensions between the two countries. Israeli Transport Minister Miri Regev said the U.S. had deployed 72 refueling aircraft at Ben Gurion Airport. The aircraft were positioned there during heightened regional tensions. According to Channel 12, it remains unclear whether the aircraft will leave Israel entirely or be moved elsewhere. No official details on their final destination have been released. U.S. refueling aircraft reportedly occupied nearly half of the available parking area at Ben Gurion Airport. The deployment highlighted the scale of the American military presence during the crisis.
We had a great relationship. We're talking about some end details. I didn't like that he did an attack based on there was a very minor little thing with some drones that were released, and he ends up doing I saw that attack. I saw where that bomb went. Did you see what happened? That was a vicious. That was too much. You can do too much also. But we've had a very effective relationship. Without the United States, there would be no Israel. Without me, there would be no Israel, because no other president was willing to do what I did. I've had a great relationship with Bibi, but now Bibi has to be more responsible with respect to Lebanon. Lebanon used to be a great country. It was a country where you had professors, doctors, lawyers. The great intellect was in Lebanon. Now it's terrible. I would say of all countries, they've been treated the worst. And they can't defend themselves. And they have Hezbollah, which is a problem for them. So, no, I'm not happy with the way Israel has handled themselves with Lebanon and with Hezbollah. They should have been able to do the job faster. It just goes on forever. And when that happens, it throws a negative light on the big deal, and that's the deal with Iran. So when you ask me about Bibi, an unbelievable relationship. But Israel would have been blown up a long time ago had I not gotten involved.
A U.S.-Iran peace accord is reportedly expected to be formally signed in Switzerland on June 19th. Officials from both sides have yet to publicly release full details of the agreement. Iranian media claimed the memorandum contains 14 clauses. However, the complete text has not been made public. Reports suggest the agreement may include provisions related to regional security and sanctions. Neither Washington nor Tehran has officially confirmed the reported contents. Reports claim the White House rejected an Israeli request to review the U.S.-Iran memorandum. The reports suggest differences remain between Washington and Jerusalem over the agreement. Israeli media reported that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was not fully informed of the memorandum's contents. The claim has become a subject of political debate in Israel. Reports also suggested the Trump administration did not share the full text of the agreement with Israel before signing. Neither side has publicly released documentation confirming the claim. The White House has disputed reports that Israel was completely excluded from the negotiation process. Officials say consultations with Israeli counterparts took place during discussions. Netanyahu reportedly reprimanded Eyal Zami over letter disclosing details of a halted Iran strike. The letter reportedly revealed that the strike was called off just an hour before jets were due to depart. Netanyahu also reportedly criticized Air Force Commander Omer Tishler for including that detail in the letter. According to reports, Netanyahu said the information should never have been written in the document. Israeli Prime Minister reportedly described the disclosure as a national error. Netanyahu is also said to have argued that the revelation harmed unity and caused embarrassment in front of Trump. The dispute reportedly played out during a cabinet meeting on Tuesday, according to Iran International. The letter was said to have disclosed sensitive timing details about the halted strike on Iran. Netanyahu reportedly objected to the public disclosure of details tied to the aborted operation. The Israeli Air Force chief publicly confirmed that a major, carefully planned strike on Iran, scheduled for last week, was abruptly called off before it could be carried out. Major General Omer Tischler said the Air Force had spent weeks preparing for a massive operation slated for June 8, with detailed planning and assets positioned for execution. Tischler revealed the unexpected cancellation in a message he sent to troops on Tuesday, according to the Times of Israel, acknowledging the decision and its impact on personnel. Despite the broader operation being called off, Israel carried out a series of limited retaliatory strikes against selected Iranian targets prior to halting the larger mission. Those limited strikes followed an escalation in which Iran launched ballistic missiles toward Israeli-controlled territory, prompting a measured military response. Israeli jets reportedly struck dozens of targets approximately 1,500 kilometers inside Iranian territory, reaching deep into the country to neutralize strategic sites. Reports indicate the attacks caused damage to key Iranian air defense systems and other military assets, degrading Tehran's ability to respond quickly. He said pilots and entire squadrons had been fully briefed, armed, and standing by, ready to taxi and take off at a moment's notice. In a dramatic last-minute decision, the operation was halted just 1 hour before the aircraft were scheduled to depart, leaving forces grounded after final preparations. Prime Minister Netanyahu reportedly called off the planned strike after receiving a direct phone call from President Donald Trump, who urged caution and recommended the operation be halted. During that conversation, Trump urged Israel not to escalate the conflict further with Iran, warning that a wider confrontation could have far-reaching and destabilizing consequences. Trump warned that if Israel expanded the confrontation, it could find itself fighting alone without broader international support, a risk that would dramatically change the regional balance. The violence reignited after Hezbollah fired rockets into northern Israel, an escalation that quickly pulled multiple actors back into active combat and increased tensions along the front lines. Following those developments, Iran launched 24 ballistic missiles aimed toward Israeli territory in a marked and significant escalation of its direct involvement. At the same time, Yemen's Houthi rebels fired 2 missiles at Israel, adding another front to the clash and underscoring how the crisis had drawn in regional proxies. In response, Israel carried out 2 distinct waves of strikes against Iranian targets, a measured but forceful retaliation intended to degrade Tehran's capabilities. Those strikes reportedly struck 9 Iranian air defense systems across western and central Iran, aiming to blunt Tehran's ability to detect and intercept follow-up attacks. Trump and Netanyahu spoke multiple times over the course of the week-long crisis, maintaining a steady line of communication as events unfolded and decisions were weighed. Netanyahu repeatedly pushed for continued military pressure against Iran, arguing that sustained action was necessary to deter further aggression and protect Israeli interests. Trump, by contrast, pressed for de-escalation and a negotiated settlement, favoring diplomacy and a ceasefire over a broader regional war. A larger Israeli operation was ultimately cancelled while aircraft remained on the tarmac awaiting launch orders, a last-minute decision that halted what had been a fully primed mission. In the days that followed, the United States and Iran reached an agreement intended to bring an end to the fighting, a diplomatic move designed to de-escalate and stabilize the region. Tehran claimed that the operation was aimed at Israeli military facilities across the country, signaling that no single base would be considered off-limits in a wider clash. The reported strikes focused on Ramat David, Nevatim and Tel Naf air bases in northern and central Israel, 3 pillars of the Israeli Air Force's day-to-day operations. Tehran repeatedly described the bombardment as a warning over Israeli military operations in Lebanon, hinting that a much heavier response could follow if its red lines were ignored.